The house on Ashwood Lane. They call it the Whispering House. A decrepit Victorian mansion at the end of Ashwood Lane, where the street lights never seemed to work. For years I'd heard the rumors, how people who went inside never came out quite the same. I thought it was just town gossip meant to keep kids from breaking into an abandoned property. That was until last Friday. I wasn't alone in my curiosity. My friend Marcus had dared me, half drunk on cheap beer, to go inside and prove it was just a house. Just take a picture of something cool, he'd said, laughing. Bonus points if it's a ghost. It was stupid, but pride and alcohol are a dangerous mix. So, there I was, standing in front of the Whispering House just after midnight. The air was damp and smelled like rain, even though the sky was clear. The house loomed over me, its peeling paint and broken windows staring like hollow eyes. As I pushed the creaky iron gate open, a shiver ran through me that had nothing to do with the chill. The front door was ajar, its once grand frames sagging with age. I stepped inside, the floor groaning beneath my weight. The air inside was suffocatingly still, heavy with the scent of mold and decay. My flashlight flickered as I panted around the grand foyer. A staircase curled upward like a spine, its banister rotted and splintered. Faintly, I could hear whispers, so soft I thought they were just the wind outside. "Hello?" I called out, my voice cracking. The whispers stopped. That's when I should have left. But curiosity pulled me further in. The floor plan was a labyrinth, rooms twisting into each other in ways that didn't make sense. I wandered through a parlor where old, dust-covered furniture sat like mourners at a funeral. In the kitchen, pots still hung from racks, their surfaces blackened as though scorched by fire. The whispers started again, louder this time, but still indistinct. It wasn't until I reached the sitting room that I realized they weren't random. They were calling my name. A chill clawed its way up my spine. "Marcus, is this you?" I said, my voice trembling. No answer, just my name, drawn out in a raspy, sing-song tone. "Come in. Come in." My flashlight flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. I stumbled back, and as the light came back on, I saw her, standing in the corner. A woman in a tattered white dress, her head tilted unnaturally to one side. Her face was pale, her eyes two dark voids that seemed to drink in the light. Her mouth twisted into a grin that stretched far too wide. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. She raised a bony hand and pointed toward the staircase. "Upstairs," she whispered. "Nope," I croaked, backing toward the door. But when I turned, the door was gone. Just an expanse of cracked, peeling wallpaper. The house seemed to groan, its walls pressing in as if alive. My heartbeat thundered as I stumbled up the staircase, compelled by something I couldn't fight. The whispers grew louder with every step, now a cacophony of voices overlapping, crying, laughing, screaming. At the top of the stairs, a long hallway stretched before me, lined with doors. Each was slightly ajar, shadows shifting behind them. One door at the end was fully open, light spilling out like an invitation. Or a warning. I stepped inside. It was a bedroom, untouched by time. A child's bed sat in the corner, its blankets perfectly made. Toys were scattered across the floor, and a cracked mirror hung above a small vanity. The whispers had stopped. It was silent now, so silent it hurt my ears. Then I saw it. The mirror. My reflection wasn't mine. It was the woman. Her void-like eyes met mine, and she smiled again, wider this time. Her lips moved, and though I couldn't hear her, I knew what she was saying. "You belong to us now." The room plunged into darkness, and I felt hands, cold, countless hands, grabbing at my arms, my legs, my throat. I screamed, fighting to break free, but they pulled me down into the floor that gave way like quicksand. When I woke, it was morning. I was lying on the front lawn, the house silent behind me. But something was wrong. My reflection in the puddles on the ground wasn't my own. It was her. I don't go out in daylight anymore. The whispers won't let me. They grow louder when I try, laughing and chanting the same phrase over and over. "You belong to us now." It's been 3 days since the house. 3 days since I woke up on the lawn, my body soaked in dew, my reflection stolen by something that shouldn't exist. At first, I tried to convince myself it was just a vivid nightmare, my imagination warped by fear and adrenaline. But the signs won't let me deny the truth. The first was the reflection. I avoided mirrors after I saw her staring back at me, but it wasn't just mirrors. I caught her in my phone screen when I tried to make a call. Her face flashed for a second in the microwave's glass door as I heated leftovers. Once I glanced into a puddle on the sidewalk, and there she was, her void-like eyes meeting mine. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I understood anyway: come back. The second sign was the whispers. They started softly, an indistinct hum just at the edge of hearing. I thought it was tinnitus, maybe some after-effect of stress, but they grew louder as night fell. Now I hear them clearly. A chorus of voices overlapping, calling my name, pleading, mocking. Come back. You belong here. You belong to us. I haven't slept. Not really. When I close my eyes, I feel the hands again, cold and clammy, dragging me down into the suffocating dark. Sometimes I wake up gasping, convinced I can still smell the moldy, rotting wood of that cursed house. Other times I wake up somewhere I didn't fall asleep, on the floor, in the corner of my bedroom, once even on the porch outside. I don't know how I got there. But last night was worse. Last night, the whispers stopped, replaced by a single, bone-chilling sound: her laugh. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe I need to get it out, or maybe I'm hoping that by putting it into words, I can make it all seem less real. But nothing feels real anymore. Not the sunlight streaming through my window, not the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen. It's like the house didn't just haunt me, it pulled me out of the world entirely, leaving me stranded in some hollow imitation of reality. This morning, I noticed something new. A smear of dirt on my shoes, the same dirt that coated the floors of the house. I could have ignored it, chalked it up to lingering grime, but then I saw the trail. Muddy footprints leading from my bedroom door to my bed. My breath caught. I hadn't left my room all night, or at least I thought I hadn't. But the footprints were there, proof of something I couldn't explain. Something is following me. The trail of footprints wasn't the only thing I found. On my nightstand, scrawled in shaky letters across a scrap of paper, was a message. You can't escape us. I didn't write it. I know I didn't. My hands shook as I stared at it, bow rising in my throat. The handwriting was jagged and uneven, as if written in desperation, or by someone who hadn't used a pen in years. I burned the note in the sink, but it didn't matter. The message isn't just written in ink, it's carved into my mind. I hear it in the whispers, see it in the dark corners of every room. It follows me wherever I go. I can't stay here. I've been pacing my apartment for hours, trying to figure out what to do. Should I leave town? Burn the house to the ground? Go back and confront whatever's waiting for me there? The whispers grow louder as I consider my options. They seem to approve of the last one. It's midnight again. I'm standing outside the whispering house, my flashlight clutched tightly in my hand. I didn't think I'd be able to come back, but here I am, drawn by something I can't explain. The whispers have stopped entirely now, replaced by an oppressive silence. It's almost worse. The door is open, just like before. The house is waiting for me. I step inside. The air is colder this time, heavy with the weight of anticipation. My flashlight flickers as I navigate the twisting halls. Everything feels smaller, more claustrophobic. The walls seem to lean in, pressing against me. Every step echoes like a gunshot. I follow the trail. Muddy footprints, identical to the ones I found in my apartment, lead me to the staircase. At the top, the hallway stretches longer than it should, its shadows writhing like living things. The open door at the end glows faintly, its light pulsing like a heartbeat. I step through. The room is empty, just like before. The bed is still perfectly made, the toys scattered across the floor. But the mirror is gone, replaced by something far worse. It's her. She stands where the mirror should be, her head tilted at that impossible angle, her smile impossibly wide. She raises a hand and points at me. "Welcome home," she whispers. The door slams shut behind me. Her whisper echoes in the room, wrapping around me like a noose. "Welcome home," she says again, and this time, the words don't stop. They repeat, overlapping in a haunting chant that comes from everywhere and nowhere. I try the door, it won't budge. I beat against it, my palms stinging, my breaths coming in shallow gasps. The air feels heavier, charged with static, and my flashlight dims until it's nothing more than a faint glow. Then I notice something I hadn't before. The toys scattered across the floor aren't toys anymore. They're bones. Small ones. A ribcage lies where a teddy bear had been, and a tiny skull peeks out from beneath the bed. My stomach turns as the realization hits. They're not just any bones. They're human. The woman tilts her head further, the movement jerky, like a puppet on frayed strings. "You've been here before," she whispers, her voice splitting into 2, then 3. "Don't you remember?" "I've never been here," I shout, my voice cracking. But even as I say it, a memory flickers. A child's laughter. The warmth of sunlight streaming through these very windows. The smell of cinnamon. It's like watching an old film reel play in my mind, fragmented and faded. "No," I mutter, shaking my head. "That's not real. That's not." She steps closer, her movements unnatural, like she's gliding rather than walking. Her shadow grows, stretching across the floor to meet my feet. And then I feel it, her cold, skeletal fingers brushing against my arm. "You left us," she whispers. Her voice is softer now, almost mournful. "But you always come back." The room changes. The walls ripple like water, and the colors bleed away, leaving everything in grayscale. The bed and toys vanish, replaced by furniture that looks familiar, too familiar. A couch, a coffee table, a framed photo on the wall. It's my living room. I blink, and suddenly I'm standing in my apartment. The front door is open, revealing the darkened hallway outside. Everything seems normal, but the air is wrong, too still, too quiet. And then I see the photo on the wall. It's of me, standing in front of the whispering house. But in the background, through one of the upper windows, is her face. Smiling. The whispers return, louder than ever. They swirl around me, overlapping and indistinct, except for one phrase that cuts through the noise like a blade. "Check the bedroom." I don't want to go, but my legs move on their own, dragging me down the hall. The bedroom door is ajar, the same faint light spilling out as before. I push it open, heart pounding. At first, I think the room is empty. Then I see her, crouched in the corner like a spider. Her head jerks toward me, and her smile stretches so wide it splits her cheeks. Blood drips down her neck, soaking her tattered dress. "Do you see now?" she hisses. I stagger back, but the door slams shut behind me. The room distorts, the walls warping and closing in until they're pressing against my shoulders. And then I'm falling through the floor into darkness. I wake up in a hospital bed, the harsh fluorescence stabbing into my eyes. A nurse leans over me, her face kind but tired. "You're lucky they found you," she says. "You've been missing for weeks." "Found me?" My voice is barely a whisper. "In the house on Ashwood Lane," she replies, her expression darkening. "The neighbors heard screaming and called the police. They found you unconscious in the basement." "The basement?" I don't remember a basement. "Was anyone else there?" I ask, dread coiling in my stomach. She hesitates, then shakes her head. "No, but—" She glances toward the door, as if checking for eavesdroppers. "They said there were marks on the walls. Words scratched into the stone." "What did they say?" Her voice drops to a whisper. "Welcome home." But here's the twist, I'm not in the hospital anymore. I blink, and the room dissolves, replaced by the child's bedroom from the house. The woman stands over me, her smile gone, her hollow eyes filled with something I can't quite place. "Anger? Pity? You can't escape," she says. "Because you never left." Her words, "You never left," echo in my mind, growing louder until they drown out everything else. I clamp my hands over my ears, but it doesn't stop the sound. It feels like the house is inside me now, its whispers worming their way into my brain. When I open my eyes again, I'm no longer in the bedroom. I'm in the basement of the house. The walls are damp, the air thick with the stench of rot. A faint light pulses from the center of the room, drawing my attention to the source. A massive, ornate mirror, its gilded frame carved with grotesque faces and twisting vines. The glass is cracked, but I can see her standing on the other side, watching me. And beside her is me. My reflection doesn't match my movements. As I step closer, the version of me in the mirror just stands there, staring. Its face is pale, gaunt, its eyes ringed with shadows. Its lips twist into a grin that stretches too wide, too far. "What's happening?" I whisper, but the words don't come out of my mouth. They come out of his. The other me raises a hand and points toward the mirror. My body moves on its own, stepping closer and closer until my nose is almost touching the glass. I feel a pull, like the mirror is a black hole and I'm being sucked into it. "No!" I croak, trying to pull back, but my feet slide across the slick floor. On the other side, the woman reaches out, her hand pressing against the glass. My reflection does the same. I realize too late what's happening. She's pulling him through. My reflection smiles one last time before stepping out of the mirror, flesh and blood, while I'm dragged in. The glass is freezing, burning my skin as I'm yanked into the mirror. When I look back, I see myself standing in the basement, grinning that impossible grin. The woman is gone, and the mirror starts to crack, splitting the world into jagged fragments. I pound against the glass, screaming, but he doesn't react. He just walks up the stairs, leaving me trapped. I don't know how long I've been in here. The world on this side is wrong. The sky is black, the air thick like molasses. Time doesn't work here, there's no day or night, just an endless twilight. I wander through an endless landscape of warped rooms, staircases that lead nowhere, and doors that open into the same space I just left. The whispers are louder now, but they don't just call my name. They laugh, they cry, they scream. Sometimes they sound like my own voice. Sometimes they sound like her. I find a notebook in one of the rooms. It's filled with writing, pages and pages of scrawled words. "Welcome home. You belong here. You never left." On the last page is a single sentence that makes my stomach drop. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." One day, or maybe one moment, it's impossible to tell, I hear footsteps. Real ones. Heavy boots clicking against the floor. I follow the sound, desperate for any sign of life. That's when I see him. It's Marcus. "Marcus!" I scream, running toward him, but he doesn't seem to hear me. He's holding a flashlight, looking around with wide, nervous eyes. He's in the house, my house. No, not my house anymore. His. "Get out!" I shout, pounding on the walls of my invisible prison. "It's a trap!" "Don't!" But it's no use. He doesn't see me. He doesn't hear me. He steps deeper into the house, following the same path I did. And then I see her. She's watching him from the shadows, her hollow eyes gleaming, her smile stretching wide. The mirror reappears in front of me, its surface shimmering like water. I see Marcus standing in the foyer, looking at the reflection of the house around him. But there's something wrong. His reflection isn't his, it's mine. "No," I whisper. "Not him." The woman's voice echoes all around me. "It's always someone," she says. "The house needs someone." I realize the terrible truth then. The house isn't just haunted. It's alive. And it feeds on us, on our fear, our desperation, our souls. It takes us one by one, replacing us with reflections, hollow shells that keep the cycle going. "Let him go!" I shout, pounding on the mirror. "Take me instead!" Her laughter fills the air, cold and mocking. "You don't get it, do you? You've already been taken." I look down at my hands and see them fading, dissolving into the same glassy shimmer as the mirror. My reflection stares back at me, grinning as it steps away from the frame. Marcus is gone now, swallowed by the house. And I am the next trap. The house on Ashwood Lane wasn't built, it was birthed. That's the first thing I understood after countless years in the mirror's prison, where time loses meaning and memories bleed into one another. The whispers, the ones that never left me, are not just the house, they're the remnants of others. Fragments of souls, shattered and absorbed into the entity that is the house. Every person who steps through its doors becomes a part of it. A story. A meal. A pawn. It didn't start as a house. It started as a presence. The origins of the Whispering House. Centuries ago, the ground where the house stands was sacred. It was a meeting place for rituals long forgotten by history, rituals to call upon forces older than language, older than light. The villagers sought prosperity, good harvests, protection. But such gifts do not come freely. Something answered their pleas. Something vast and unknowable. It didn't have a name, or if it did, it was lost to time. The villagers referred to it as the listener because it heard their prayers, their secrets, their fears. And it whispered back. For a time, the pact worked. Crops flourished, sickness waned, and enemies seemed to vanish before reaching their village. But the listener grew hungry. It demanded more than offerings of fruit or grain. It wanted blood. And when the villagers refused, it took. One by one, they disappeared. Some were found later, wandering the woods, their eyes hollow, their mouths stitched shut by some unseen hand. Others simply vanished, their houses empty save for the faint sound of whispers. The village crumbled, and the listener remained, waiting. The birth of the house. In the late 1800s, a man named Abram Lowry arrived in the area. A drifter with grand ambitions, Abram was drawn to the site by stories of strange happenings. He saw opportunity where others saw curses. He purchased the land for almost nothing, planning to build a grand estate. But the ground beneath the house never rested. Workers spoke of tools vanishing, shadows moving against the light, and voices calling to them from deep within the earth. The construction was plagued by accidents. Abram dismissed the warnings, attributing them to superstition and laziness. When the house was finished, Abram hosted a grand celebration. Dozens of guests filled the halls, toasting his success. That night, they all disappeared. The house remained, but something inside had changed. It no longer waited for visitors. It called to them. The reflective prison. The mirror, I've come to understand, is the heart of the house. It's not a mirror in the traditional sense, it's a doorway. A window into the house's true nature. The reflections trapped within aren't just illusions, they're imprints of everyone the house has consumed. Each time a victim is taken, their reflection becomes the bait for the next. The house uses us against each other, creating a seamless loop of terror and betrayal. It's why I was compelled to go back, why Marcus followed in my footsteps. The house isn't just feeding, it's growing. With each soul it takes, it becomes stronger, more aware. The house's purpose. The listener didn't simply vanish when the village died. It became the house. Or maybe the house became its vessel. Either way, it is both sentient and insatiable, existing to gather and devour those who wander too close. But it doesn't just take our lives. It takes our stories, our memories, twisting them into fuel for its existence. That's why I can't remember my family, my past. The house devours who you are until you're nothing but a whisper. But the worst part is this, the house isn't stationary. It doesn't stay in one place. When the area becomes too quiet, when the whispers die down and the town moves on, the house shifts. It disappears, only to reappear somewhere new, disguised as an abandoned mansion, a fixer-upper, or an architectural marvel. The stories start again. The cycle repeats. The house's weakness. There's one thing I've noticed during my endless wandering through the mirror's prison, the house fears light. Not the kind of light you carry in a flashlight, or the dim glow of a dying bulb. It fears sunlight, pure, unbroken light. The few remnants of souls who still cling to themselves whisper of a time when the house was nearly destroyed. Decades ago, during an unusually long summer drought, the house became dormant, its powers weakened. The entity relies on shadows, fear, and darkness to survive. If the house were exposed to unrelenting light, fire, perhaps, it might be destroyed. But there's a catch. The mirror must be broken first. As long as it remains intact, the house can repair itself, no matter how much damage is done. The mirror is its anchor, the tether between our world and the entity's true form. Destroying it might release those trapped within. Or it might destroy us all. My revelation. I'm still trapped here, but I've been listening to the whispers, piecing together fragments of truth. I believe the house's end is possible. But I can't do it from here. I need someone on the outside to find the mirror, to break it, to burn the house down before it moves again. Marcus. If you're reading this, or anyone else who finds this message, you have to stop it. The house will try to deceive you. It will use your own memories, your loved ones, your deepest fears against you. But you can't let it win. You have to fight. Find the mirror. Break it. Let the light in. Before it's too late. Marcus didn't answer my warnings, couldn't hear my screams. He wandered deeper into the house, flashlight trembling in his grip. I watched from my prison in the mirror, powerless, the weight of centuries of failure pressing down on me. But I couldn't let him end up like me, like the countless others trapped here. I remembered the whispers' clues, the fragments of truth they murmured between their taunts. The mirror must be broken. Let the light in. It was the only way to end the house's curse, to destroy the thing feeding on us. If Marcus was going to save himself, and me, I had to make him see. From the other side of the glass, I focused all my will. My reflection began to change, flickering like static on an old television. At first, Marcus didn't notice. But then my face shifted. It wasn't me anymore, it was him. Marcus! I whispered through the mirror. He froze, his flashlight darting around the room. Who's there? He called out, his voice cracking. Look at the mirror! I shouted, forcing the words through the barrier between us. He turned, his eyes widening as he saw his own reflection staring back at him, lips moving out of sync with his own. Break it! I yelled. It's the only way! What is this? He stammered, stepping closer. His flashlight illuminated the jagged cracks running through the mirror's surface, the grotesque carvings on its frame seeming to writhe in the light. The house is alive, I said, my voice trembling. It's feeding on you. On us. If you don't break the mirror, it'll never stop. He hesitated, his knuckles white as he gripped the flashlight. Behind him, the shadows began to move, pooling together like ink, forming the shape of her. She loomed over him, her hollow eyes fixed on his back. Do it now! I screamed. Before she... Too late. She lunged, her bony hands closing around his shoulders. Marcus screamed, dropping the flashlight as her jagged grin stretched across her face. Stay with us, she hissed, her voice a terrible chorus. But Marcus wasn't like me. He didn't freeze. He didn't falter. With a cry of pure desperation, he swung his flashlight with all his strength. It struck the mirror dead center. The glass shattered with an ear-splitting crack, and the world erupted into chaos. Light, blinding, searing light, poured out of the mirror, flooding the room and driving the shadows back. The woman let out a piercing shriek, her form dissolving like smoke in the wind. The house trembled, the walls groaning as though alive, splitting apart to reveal beams of sunlight slicing through the darkness. I felt it too. A pulling, tearing sensation, like the threads binding me to this place were snapping one by one. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I could breathe. The house was dying. I woke up outside, lying on the grass in front of the ruins of the Whispering House. Marcus was beside me, his face pale, his hands trembling, but alive. The house was gone, reduced to ashes and charred wood. The sun was rising, its warmth cutting through the lingering chill. You did it, I said, my voice hoarse. He turned to me, his eyes wide. What the hell was that? He whispered. The end, I replied. At least I hope it is. We sat there in silence, watching the sunlight creep across the ground, washing away the last traces of shadow. For the first time in years, or maybe centuries, I felt whole. The whispers were gone. The weight was gone. The house, the listener, whatever it was, had been defeated.